Hi everyone. Today we are discussing 2017 ICSE class 10th English language paper grammar. So 2017 English language paper grammar we are discussing. First question. You are given a paragraph and this paragraph has to fill with the correct tense. So we have two tenses, present tense and past tense. So the blanks has to be filled with either present tense or past tense. Before going to decide which tense, we are supposed to read the paragraph and understand it. So let's read the paragraph. Right. So after reading the paragraph, we need to decide which tense is supposed to be used. And there will be some clues. Tell us which tense is supposed to be used. Let us see. Now the first blank is answered here, started. It indicates V2, which means a past tense. And was past tense. Was past tense. Had past tense. Was past tense. So these words tell us this blank is supposed to be filled with the past tense. So let us see now. My mother, first one is answered. Started school when B. So past form of the B is the base form. B is the base form. V1 is am is are. Past was verb. V1 am is are, V2 was verb. Present am is are, past was. B is a base form. Now B base form, we need to write was she, was not was, she was. 6 and stopped. Stopped at the same term. She was unusual in the village as she had a father and a brother who encouraged V2. Who encouraged her to go to school. Who encouraged her to go to school. She was the only girl in a class of boys and claims she was brighter than the boys. But every day she dash bracket will leave behind her girl cousins every day. See here, normally when you talk of habitual actions, everyday actions, habitual actions, we supposed to use simple present. But we are talking about the habitual actions of the past. So we are talking about the past habitual actions. So when you talk about the past habitual actions, we supposed to use would plus base form of the verb. Would plus base form of the verb. So when you talk about the past habitual actions, we supposed to use would plus base form of the verb. So will is given in the bracket. So we are writing the past. Will past is would. Would leave behind our girl cousins. Yeah. But every day she would leave behind her girl cousins bracket play at home. At home. So this is a class. This is a main class. Already we have one main verb. Would leave. Would leave is a main verb. Now we supposed to use a secondary verb. So secondary verb cannot be V1 or V2. It's supposed to be either present participle or past participle. So we can't use V2 here because already there is one main verb. The second in the one main class, in a one main class, there's supposed to be one main verb. Now here already one main verb is here, would leave. So we can't use again another main verb. We supposed to make it play as a secondary verb, making it as a present participle. Cousins playing at home. And she, now here, two main clauses. But every day she would leave behind her girl cousins playing at home, combined using and. Again, another main clause, she. So I told you, talking about the past habitual actions. So here we write would envy. Would envy. So they both are same. These two clauses are combined using and, two main clauses. So here it is used, we are talking about everyday habitual actions of the past habitual actions. So here we have written, for the past habitual actions we are supposed to write would plus base form. So here we write would plus base form. So you must be very careful there. When habitual actions, past habitual actions come, there seemed to be no point in, there seemed to be no point in, one main verb already we have used. We can't use a second main verb in a simple sentence or in a main clause. So this is supposed to be participle again. Going to school just to end up doing housework. So there seemed to be no point in going to school just to end up doing housework. So this is answer for the first question. Fill in the blanks with an appropriate words. Now we are supposed to use here prepositions. She shouted angrily, dash the disobedient boy. Shouted. And there is a shouted, there is a possibility of using yet. Shouted to, shouted for. Shouted at, shouted to, shouted for. We are supposed to know the difference. When you are angry at somebody, we shout yet. When someone is far and you want to make your voice louder, and then you say shouted to. He shouted to me, asking to throw the ball. He shouted to me, asking to throw the ball. So here, shouted to means make your voice louder. Next, shouted for means help. Shouted for means help. So shouted at, shouted to, shouted for. Now here it is angrily, so we are supposed to use it. Shouted angrily at. I asked them to provide. So when there is a provide, the appropriate preposition is with. Provide with. A guide. The tree grew at a dangerous slant and had to be cut down. So grew dangerous slant. So we need to cut down. My daughter believes. The appropriate preposition for believes is in. Believes in. Provide it. When it comes to shouted, we have three options. We need to be very careful which option is suitable. So here's it. He drew a beautiful diagram on the board. She battled her way through the crowd. She battled her way through the crowd. So she went through the crowd. We were asked to gather around. So must be very careful, not gathered at. Gathered around. So when you gather at some place or person, then we use the preposition around. We were asked to gather around, not at. They had to climb the steep pathway to reach the top. Top means we have to up, go. So we have to climb up. So these are the prepositions. Question C. Joining two sentences without using and, but, so we should not use those three. This is the hospital. I was born here. So we are talking about the place hospital. So when you talk about the place hospital, we supposed to use a relative adverb where. Then answer is this is the hospital where I was born. Where I was born. That here is not necessary. This is the place where I was born. The children have been sick for a week. They were unable to go to school. They have been sick for a week. They were unable to go to school. They were unable to go to school. The reason is they were sick. So when you talk about the reason, we use as since, because, for present participle. Anyone can be used. Let us go with as. As children have been sick for a week, they were. So when you use a subordinate conjunction, we need to use a comma between two clauses. They were unable to go to school. We can also use a since. Since the children have been sick for a week, they were unable to go to school. We can also use a because. The children have been sick for a week. They were unable to go to school. They were unable to go to school because the children have been sick for a week. So this is a reason sentence. They were unable to go to school because the children have been sick for a week. We can also use for. For the children have been sick for a week, they were unable to go to school. Just like as a since, we use for. When it comes to participles, so we need to make it have as a participle. Participle of have, V4 is nothing but having. So having been sick for a week, the children were unable to go to school. Having been sick for a week, the children were unable to go to school. So when reason is given, there are 5 possible answers. Third question. Mr. Kumar has been a teacher for 30 years. She will now retire. So we are talking about Mrs. Kumar. This sentence also said. So we use a relative pronoun. Mrs. Kumar, who has been a teacher for 30 years, will now retire. Mr. Kumar, who has been a teacher, who is a relative pronoun. We have had no respect for nature. Now we are suffering from the effects of global warming. We have had no respect for nature. Now we are suffering from the effect of global. So we are talking about a reason here. We are suffering. Why are we suffering? We had no respect for nature. So this is reason. This is reason. This is a result. This is a reason. That's a result. So when it is a reason, we are suffering. What is the reason? We have no respect for nature. When it is a reason, so as I told you earlier, we have as, since, for, because, and present participle. Let us write with as first. As we have had no respect for nature, now we are suffering from the effects of global warming. We are supposed to use a comma. We can use a since. Since we have had, we write the answer here, since this time. Since we have had no respect for nature, comma, now we are suffering from the effects of global warming. Effects of global warming. Question 4. D. Transformation of sentences. Transformation of a sentence. Let us see the first one. Not many people read for pleasure these days. Not many people read for pleasure these days. Not many. So not many is nothing but a few. Few indicates not many. And there is another word, a few. A few means some. So be careful with the meaning. A few means some. Few means not many. When you use the word few, it indicates negative. When you use the word a few, it indicates a positive. Not many. So simple answer. Few people read for pleasure these days. Read for pleasure these days. Since her childhood, Meera has been good at mathematics. Good at mathematics. Ask us to end with childhood. Simple. Begin with Meera. Meera has been good at mathematics since her childhood. Since her childhood. Meera has been good at mathematics since her childhood. Third question. We have had no rain since January, Ramu said. So this is a direct speech asking us to write an indirect speech. We have had no rain since January is a reported class. Ramu said is a reporting class. Reporting. This is reported class. We have had no rain since January is a assertive sentence or a declarative sentence. Assertive sentence. First point. If it is an assertive sentence, what conjunction must be used? That conjunction must be used. If it is an assertive sentence, that conjunction must be used. Third point. Said or said to. Said or said to. Changes to. Sorry. Said we write said. Said to we write told. Assertive sentence, no? So assertive sentence, be careful. Said we write said. If it is said to, we write told. If there is any other verb, reporting verb, then we use the same reporting verb. Said to, told. Here is only said. So always we begin indirect speech with the reporting clause. Here, Ramu. Ramu said. We are not writing told here because only said is given. Ramu said. What a conjunction must be used? That. Ramu said that we. So we can use we can use they. Suppose if you think that you are there in the, so Ramu said to you or Ramu told you, if you feel it's you are there, then we write we. Suppose you are not there, Ramu said someone, then we go with the they. So we can also write we or they. We or they. If you are in there, if you feel you are there, then we, which means you are the listener. If you are not the listener, then we go with the they. Have. Direct speech have. Indirect speech had. Have indirect speech is had. If we or they had, again another had is given. That. So which means it's a present perfect. We change into past perfect. Have plus V3 is a present perfect. Had plus V3 is a past perfect. Had no rain since January. Since January. Full stop. So Ramu said that we are there. Had no rain since January. Full stop. Fourth question. It is dangerous as well as illegal to drive a motorcycle without a helmet. As well as. So when we use as well as, we use a correlative conjunction. What is a correlative conjunction? Equal to that is not only but also. As well as, we use not only but also. When there is as well as, we use not only but also. Then right answer, it is dangerous. So it is not only it is not only dangerous but also illegal. And also it is not only dangerous but also illegal to drive a motorcycle without a helmet. If you drive without helmet, 1000 rupees fine. So it is not only danger, of course it is a danger if you just ride without helmet. It is illegal, which means you will be fined 1000 rupees. Without helmet means 1000 rupees. Okay, it is not only as well as. When you just see as well as, we use a correlative conjunction not only but also. We had plenty of wealth, but he was not happy. Asked us to write in spite of. In spite. So when you write in spite of, then you need to remember. First, if there is a be form, use being after in spite of. After in spite of, use being if there is a be form. What are the be forms? Am, is, are, was, were. If there is a verb, then use present participle, which means base form of the verb plus ing. Like going, singing, dancing, reading. So base form plus after in spite of. Suppose if there is a do form, then use doing. Suppose if there is a have form, use having after in spite of. So be form, being, verb, base form of the verb, doing, do, being, have form, having. Have forms, present have has a past had. So let us see now. We had plenty of wealth, but he was not happy in spite of. In spite of had. Have form is given. If there is a have form, we are supposed to use having. In spite of having plenty of wealth, comma, plenty of wealth, remove but, don't use but again. When we use in spite of or despite, don't use yet or but or still. Yet, but, still should not be used along with in spite of. Comma, he was not happy. We can also write in spite of the fact that, because it's given in spite, no? So we can also write another answer in spite of the fact that, in spite of the fact that he had. So there you need not to use any participle. When you write in spite of and immediately participle, okay. But when you write in spite of the fact that, when you write this phrase, in spite of the fact that, you just write exactly without changing. So we don't use any participles there. In spite of the fact that he had plenty of wealth, Again remove but, comma, he was not happy. You can also write using despite, but only thing is don't use of after despite. Despite having plenty of wealth, not despite of, despite having plenty of wealth. Even here, despite the fact that, not despite of the fact that, despite the fact that we can write. He was so tired that he could not stand, asked us to write it too. So, that plus subject plus cannot or could not. Cannot or could not. So, that plus subject plus cannot or could not. Present tense we write cannot. Past tense we write could not. Here it is given, see, could not. The reason is was. So that plus subject plus cannot or could not. Then when you write using to, in place of so we write to, and in place of this we just write to. We just write to. Now write the answer. He was too tired. So you remove am tired. Not necessary. So in place of that plus subject plus cannot or could not, whatever it is, cannot, could not, present tense cannot, past could not. Remove it. In place of that, simply write to. Remove this entire and write to. Remain. Stand. He was too tired to stand. That's answer. 7. Every one of them was an experienced mountaineer. Was an experienced mountaineer. Begin with there was no. So simple. This is very simple. There was no. He said everyone is experienced, which means there was no inexperienced mountaineer among them. So there was no inexperienced mountaineer among them. Everyone is experienced. Now I am telling here, asked us to begin with there was no. So there was no inexperienced. I have never seen a film as bad as this. As bad as this. So this is a plain or positive degree. Plain or a positive degree. Model 1. Model 1. So we can write, asked us to begin with this is. This is, we are writing first with the superlative. So model 1. As, here no, never or no. No one. As is a positive degree. When it comes to superlative degree, DST. When it comes to comparative degree, than any other. Than any other. Now we write here first superlative degree. This is the worst film. So bad 3 forms. Degrees of comparison bad. Bad. Worse. Worse is comparative. Worst is a superlative. So as we are writing answer with the superlative, we use worst. Bad, worse, worst. When it comes to good, good, better, best. Good, better, best. When it comes to bad, bad, worse, worst. So as we are writing here superlative degree, this is the worst film that I have ever seen. Ever seen. Not never seen, ever seen. This is the worst film that I have ever seen. Suppose asked us to write comparative. We can also write, because it is asked us to start with this is. We can also write with the comparative. This is a verse. Comparative means we write verse, not a verse. This is a worse film than any other. So we write than any other. In comparative, we write than any other. Than any other film, than any other films I have ever seen. I have ever seen. Once again, see. Comparative. This is a worse film. Comparative worse film than any other, because when it is a comparative, we are supposed to use than any other. Model 1, than any other films I have ever seen. When it comes to superlative, this is the worst film that I have ever seen. So don't use again ever in comparative and superlative. So this is 2017 English language paper. Thank you.